Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to take you on a journey into the world of one of the most fascinating invertebrates in the hobby. The Rubber Ducky Isopod. At first glance they almost look like an alien. Bright yellow markings, rounded bodies, a face that somehow looks back at you. But behind that friendly appearance is an animal that is incredibly specialized, fragile and deeply tied to a very specific corner of our wonderful world. In this video, I'll show you how I went from a handful of Rubber Ducky Isopods to a colony of baby rubber duckies in just 140 days. So, let's jump right in. When I started my own rubber ducky colony 145 days ago, I set them up in a small glass jar with a volume of just 5 liters. That's 2 US gallons. If you've been following this series, you've already seen the full build process from hardscape to plants to water level adjustments, so I'll keep this part short. The goal was simple: a stable land-water transition, mineral-rich materials, dense moss and constant moistures. No shortcuts and no complex tech. Just a tiny, closed jar that can breathe but never dry out. If you want the full setup story, I'll link the original video in the series down below, in the video description and in the top right corner. Looking back, adding too much water at the start was probably a mistake. One of my most loyal subscribers and friends, Green Machine Sweden, rightfully pointed that out. So shout out to Magnus right here. Therefore, I removed some of the water and let the system rebalance itself. And then, 140 days after the initial setup, I noticed something unexpected. Baby Rubber Ducky Isopods. Everywhere. They are incredibly hard to film. Since they are nocturnal, as soon as the lights come out, they disappear, running for cover deep into the moss and substrate. But they're there, proof that the conditions are working. The jar itself is simple. It's closed, but not sealed airtight. It's always moist and never dry. Every few weeks they get a fresh bunch of dead leaves that I collect in the city center or in local forests. That's it. No complicated routines, no constant intervention, no water changes, just stable conditions, time and patience. Maybe that's the real lesson the Rubber Ducky Isopod teaches us today. This isn't an animal you rush or optimize for speed. It thrives in stillness, in consistency, in environments that barely change at all. A tiny crustacean from a limestone cave in Thailand, now living quietly inside a 5-liter jar, mostly unseen, mostly active when we're not looking. And slowly, very slowly, continuing its life cycle right in front of us. The Rubber Ducky Isopod is still undescribed by formal science. Right now, it sits in the genus Cubaris within the family Amadillidae, mostly because it can roll itself into a tight ball. So, scientists decided that it must belong to the same family. But researchers already consider Cubaris something of a waste bucket genus, a temporary home for many Southeast Asian isopods. Southeast Asian isopods that look similar on the surface but may not be closely related at all. Future genetic work will very likely move the Rubber Ducky Isopod into an entirely different genus. In other words, this is an animal that science is still catching up with. In the wild, rubber duckies are highly localized endemics. That means they only naturally occur in one region. They were discovered around 2017 in limestone cave systems in Thailand, specifically in the Kanchanaburi province. These aren't generalist pillbugs that can survive almost anywhere. They are adapted to a very narrow range of conditions found only in these karst cave environments. Constant moisture, stable temperature, and limestone-rich substrates. Their entire biology is shaped by that particular environment. As cave dwellers, rubber duckies are calciphiles. Calciphiles are species that depend on extremely high levels of calcium carbonate to successfully molt and build their exoskeletons. In their natural habitat, they constantly ingest limestone and mineral-rich detritus, and without access to these minerals, molting can fail, often with fatal consequences. It's one of the reasons this species has such a reputation for being difficult to keep and breed. In order to add calcium to their enclosure, I like to grind bladder snail shells and add them. Bladder snails populate all of my aquatic ecosystems, and my assassin snails usually do a great job at hunting and killing them, leaving behind empty shells. These leftover shells can be used as isopod nutrients. Rubber Ducky Isopods are also very different from common isopods when it comes to reproduction. Rubber duckies follow a slow reproduction strategy. They mature slowly, often taking 6 months or even longer, and they also live longer than normal isopods, with estimated lifespans of 2 to 3 years. And they produce relatively small broods, usually somewhere between 5 and 15 mensae at a time. They are nocturnal, highly photophobic, that means they are afraid of light. They spend most of their lives hidden away, burrowed deep into moist substrate up to 15 centimeters down, where humidity stays stable and ensures that the respiratory structures can function properly. Those respiratory structures are another key piece of the puzzle. Rubber duckies use pleopodal lungs, complex branching structures on their pleopods. These lungs only work within a narrow humidity range, roughly 80 to 90%. Too dry and they desiccate. Too wet and they risk drowning. They live constantly on that edge between land and water and life and death. And that balance is exactly what I try to recreate in their enclosure. If you enjoyed this journey and want to see how this colony develops over the coming months, make sure you're subscribed. Also, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to the members of the Guppy Gang. Julius, JVP, Belgium Bugs, and Dottie. Your support helps keep this channel running and makes my isopods happy. You can also join the Guppy Gang to support my fish channel right now. Just click on the link on my channel. If you like this video, I'm sure you would love to see how I originally set up this ecosystem with all the species in it, not just Rubber Ducky Isopods on the right hand side, or the video on the left hand side. Thanks for watching.